you see a lot of guys get rushed in situations, especially maybe highly touted prospects or guys that are kind of in a different situation.
Right.
And that's not always the best for development. And I think you see it in the NHL too, where, they rush guys to the NHL because they're a high pick, or they come out of college and they're like, I'm not going to go to the American League. And, I think being, I guess, humble is a word, I guess, but just having an open mind to being like, maybe I'm not ready. And that was a big one for me. And
that was number 39 of the Boston Bruins, Morgan Geekie, and you're listening to the Up My Hockey Podcast with Jason Podolin.
Just watch me now.
Welcome to Up My Hockey with Jason Podolin, where we deconstruct the NHL journey, discuss what it takes to make it, and have a few laughs along the way. I'm your host, Jason Podolin, a 31st overall draft pick who played 41 NHL games, but thought he was destined for 1,000. Learn from my story and those of my guests. This is a hockey podcast about reaching your potential. Hey there, welcome to 159, episode 159, that is, of the Up My Hockey Podcast with Jason Podolin. I'm your host, Jason Podolin, and you are here for my conversation with current Boston Bruins star forward Morgan Geekie. And what an exciting podcast for me. Again, not always do I have the opportunity to speak with current NHL players and current thriving NHL players. And this week, you have the benefit of that conversation. Morgan just came off a career year, 33 goals, 24 assists, 57 points, second on the Boston Bruins in overall points, second on the Boston Bruins in goals. And that goal total not only put him second on the Boston Bruins behind Pastrnak, but put him above household all-star names like Jack Eichel, like Mikko Rantanen, like Nathan McKinnon, that Morgan Geekie scored more goals than this year. So really exciting year for Morgan Geekie, and his story, I can't wait for you guys to hear it. There's just so many, interesting highlights that are not the norm, let's say. What's an example of that? Like being drafted 90th overall in your WHL draft to being drafted 67th overall in your NHL draft. That usually doesn't happen. You usually don't move up the rankings. There's also an interesting twist there for Morgan because he was not drafted in his first year of NHL eligibility. He was overlooked and then got drafted as a draft plus one and went 67th overall. He was somebody that didn't get qualified after leaving the Seattle Kraken, meaning that Seattle Kraken did not deem him worthy of continuing to be a Seattle Kraken, and they let him go to free agency, where the Boston Bruins picked him up, and he quickly found a new home. Another piece that's so incredible about his story is that this year, in his breakout, huge year, he started in the stands. There was games 3, I believe he says, in a row where he was a healthy scratch at the start of this year. And look at the way he finished. So there's so many reminders and lessons in this conversation about, perseverance, about your own development path, about finding opportunity where others might see problems. And Morgan is super humble, super forthcoming. It was a really great conversation. I know Morgan, or was connected through Morgan through his dad, Craig, who was helping me with my UMH 68 Invitational event in Manitoba. Craig is my provincial director there, and was able to connect me with Morgan. And yeah, it was an awesome conversation. Morgan now, who I've already said, owner of 333 NHL games, started with the Carolina Hurricanes, was picked up in the expansion draft by the Seattle Kraken, and then picked up in free agency by the Boston Bruins. And all systems are looking go for him as he is looking at a nice, new, healthy contract here this summer. So lots of good stuff here, like a lot of good stuff in this conversation. Morgan was kind enough to give us well over an hour of his time. We dive into his development journey as a young man growing up in the town of Strathclair, Manitoba, which depends on which census you want to look at. It roughly has a population of 700 people. His development there with his family and his brothers. He is the brother of Connor Geekie as well, older brother of Connor, who is a current NHL player and prospect with the Tampa Bay Lightning organization, and is also his other brother Noah, who is playing baseball down in the States. We talk about that. We talk about his time as a Tri-City American. We talk about his time in the AHL, which I think is fantastic for these young guys to have a year or two there to not only grow their game, but to also understand and appreciate the value of the NHL when you do get there. We talk about everything, really, about his development path, even how to become a better player at the level that he's at now, some of his resilience and how he looked at some of the situations throughout his career to get through and to get to where he is now as a 33 goal scorer in the NHL. So I really, really enjoyed this interview. I know you will too. And without further ado, let's bring you number 39 of the Boston Bruins, Morgan Geekie. All right, here we are with Boston Bruins star forward Morgan Geekie. Morgan, welcome to the podcast, man.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here, following my dad's footsteps.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess you sons of dads are always following in some capacity, right, of the footsteps.
Yeah,
I'm sure
right.
I'm sure he's very proud of the things you've created and surpassed his career, and but not so with the podcast. You have not surpassed him with the podcast yet.
No, I'll have to be a reoccurring guest maybe and pass him.
There we go. There we go. Yeah, man, awesome to have you on. Super great. I don't even know if you know, but your little bro was on just when he was in WHL still. He was a fun guest, and now it's great to have you on, especially after the season that you've had. So maybe we'll just start there. I do want to get back to kind of, living in small town Manitoba, having the three brothers that you did and sort of what that was looking like for you. But I'd probably be stupid not to talk about 33 goals right off the bat. Like, congratulations on a frickin' fantastic season, second on the Bruins in scoring. Talk to me about just where you're at right now and kind of where that season went.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I don't really know. I mean, it was a whirlwind of a year and started a little uncharacteristically, I guess. I got scratched a few times at the start of the year, and it was kind of just one of those things where you get the full spectrum of the NHL kind of in one season, and peaks and valleys, and that's how it is. So, I was super happy with my year, and unfortunately, we're not still playing. I know our team was supposed to be a lot better than we were, and I thought we had a good group of guys, and we're going to have a good group of guys coming in next year too. But it's good. Every season in the NHL is a privilege, and I remember playing my first game and then my 100th and 200th. So it's just one of those things that you look back on and you'll always be able to cherish it, and it's something that no one can take away from you. So it was super super fun experience this year.
Good for you, man. Yeah, 333 games and counting, which is awesome, and I want to get into that for sure. Because it is like it's a process. Like, it's a total process, and there's a lot of things that have to go right. There's a lot of things that players have to get through, and for you to even bring that up, in the first part of your sentence, like I want my guests to hear that, right? Like, here you are, and for those of you out there, like I haven't done the intro yet, so I don't know what it's going to be in it, but I'm going to say this now. You look on the goal leaders for the NHL in this past season, and you're ahead of Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, Jack Eichel, right? Like, household superstar names. And you are somebody that got scratched at the beginning of the year yet. Like, that is wild for someone to listen to. And, and everyone gets stuck in their own system, right? Being a bantam and not being on the power play and feeling sorry for yourself and being in major junior and think you're not getting the minutes. And now here you are, scratched at the beginning of the season. And an NHLer, 300, 200, 300 game NHLer scratched, was able to get through that and have the season that you did. Like, if you can explain to me at the start, because that was not where you thought you would start. That is not the start that you wanted to the season. How did you get through that and prosper?
Yeah, I think for me, I finished the year really well, and playoffs, I thought we played very well, and going back to the start of last year, the way that the Bruins ended their record season, everyone thought with all the turnover and losing all those guys that it'd be a rebuilding sort of year. And, Don and Cam and the coaching staff brought everybody in that was, going to be important to, take that next step and kind of rebuild, I guess. And, we started off like 9-0, I want to say, and had a really good season. And then Playoffs, we played two great opponents. Obviously, we beat the Leafs in Game 7 that year, and then lost to Florida in 6. We ended up winning, but I went into my summer and started training right away, started skating right away, and just like had the itch because that was the most I've ever contributed to a run like that, and I thought my game was trending a lot in the right way. And then I went through camp, and to be honest, like didn't have a great camp. I came in prepared for sure. It was the most prepared I've been, just knowing the role that I could have and um, build on the year prior. So then, to kind of take a step backward during camp, and then things kind of slip away the first few games, and the team not start off very well. It was kind of like an avalanche of things that all just snowballed maybe out of proportion a little bit, and yeah, I got scratched in Colorado was my first one, and then honestly from there, I don't really remember what games I got scratched for, but I feel like when you get stuck in those ruts or getting scratched, and you feel like you're kind of just on a hamster wheel going round and round, and it's tough to get out of that. I leaned a lot on my support group, and the guys were awesome, obviously at the rink, and the assistant coaches, and Marshy and some other guys in the team. But for me, it's like I leaned a lot on my family and close friends and my wife, and just tried to get away as much as I could. I feel like when you get in that situation, you start nitpicking at everything that has gone wrong, and where you're at, and you kind of get stuck in this time warp almost. Whereas it's one of those things that once you take a step back and see the perspective of like, okay, maybe I've been scratched 3 games in a row, but if you look at it, I'm pretty lucky to have played, 200 games in the NHL, and to be in the position where I'm at, and have a healthy family and a healthy dog, and just like all the little things you start to appreciate more. And it's really tough in that situation to leave stuff at the rink. But for me, that was like once I started leaving everything I could at the rink and tried to get away, I almost thought I started playing better, because it was like you unfortunately have to start treating it like a job. And when it comes to that, especially those situations, you have to understand that, there's people that work 9 to 5s that have bad days at work. And that's just one of those things that I was going through. And, I was lucky enough to get another shot, playing up in the lineup when I came back, and just tried to make the most out of my opportunity, when it came.
Yeah. Good for you, man. Yeah. One of the things when I'm talking with players who are in a similar scenario is like, I think there's a fine line, and maybe you can speak to that, about the idea of, okay, you're not in the lineup also for a reason deemed by somebody, right? Like somebody deems you not in the lineup. Now that probably means you have to be getting better at something, right? You need to improve some aspect of your game. So yes, we do need to do the extra, but we can't be there 24 hours a day either, because that's not reality, and everyone needs a little bit more of a break. So like, how did you balance that in that time, the art of working on your game while also trying to find a passion and a disconnect from it when you left?
Yeah, and I think that's the tough part, is you don't want to get too involved in, or too engulfed in everything that's going on, especially when you're in that scenario. You want to be on the ice all the time, and you want to be working on those things that maybe you don't think are up to par, or that have went wrong and led to where you are now. But I think for me, it was like trying to get the most out of the hours I was there. I think you have your routine when everything's going right. You go and you have a cup of coffee with the guys, and kind of shoot it while you're having breakfast, and talk with the trainers. But you've got to make time for that, and be a good teammate, and be there for the guys off the ice. But I mean, when it comes time to work, if it means getting dressed a little quicker and going out 10-15 minutes early, and staying out 10-15 minutes extra, I think that's really all that you need to do in that scenario. And just maybe up the intensity, because at that point, practices are your games, and that's where you're going to improve. And coaches notice everything, and as unfortunate as that is sometimes, in that case, I remember it was like right before I came back into the lineup. I think for good at that point. I'd had like 2 or 3 really good practices in a row, and I'm not a notoriously really good practice player. So it was nice to see, to get noticed for that, I guess, is just like the intensity that I was trying to put in, and the effort. So it's good to be able to like learn those things, and now if I was faced with that situation again, you're already 2 steps ahead of where you were last time.
Yeah, 100%. Uh, I love that. Like, what was there? What was there about the training camp, if you were to take a lesson from that, that you would have done different or stopped sooner or whatever the case may be?
I think I got a little too worried about maybe producing in the role I was. I remember going in, I was kind of slated to play right wing with Marshy and Charlie Coyle, and we had success last year, and you kind of just automatically assume that you did well the year prior, and I think it's just human nature that you kind of carry things over. But it's a long summer, guys get older, maybe some injuries over the summer or just not being prepared. But I think for me, it was just like got so wrapped up in trying to produce. And, when I look back on it now, I remember like we lost to Florida game 1 of the season. We lost like 6-3. And I had a one timer with like a minute and a half left that I put off the crossbar, and it didn't go in. And as soon as it didn't go in, I just kind of automatically thought, especially with the way the camp went, I was like, oh boy, this is how year is going to go. And that was like kind of the wormhole that I started going down already. And it was such a harmless play because it's like I did everything right going into that.
Right.
And you get the opportunity to score and you don't put it in. It's just crazy how things can change. So maybe just try not to get so down on myself. But I think I got wrapped up in things that were products of a good on ice product. And so just focus on more things away from the puck and get back to playing the right way instead of just
Right.
being too wrapped up in producing.
Yeah, I love you mentioning that. That is totally something that I know that I did personally, and it's also something that I do help some of the junior guys I'm with now. Is when the results is the focus, right? Like the scoring or the assist. Sometimes it takes our attention away from what it takes to get the goal,
Hmm.
right? Like you said, like the details of the game, and so maybe taking 2 steps back and whatever, focusing on a forecheck or focusing on puck protection below the goal line is where you create your offense from. So I should make sure that I have the puck down below the goal line more, which is now going to give me more opportunities, right? So it's kind of interesting when we let our attention go in wrong directions, how it can manifest in problems sometimes.
Hmm. Yeah, it's crazy, and it's tough to get the confidence back when you get to that point. But I think being able to mentally get over that and um, figure out personally where you need to go from there is
Yeah.
something that everybody can learn from and grow from.
And what a great story for you to have in your resume now too, though. Like to have a start like that, to be a healthy scratch, to hit that crossbar and have that mental dialogue going on in your head, yet to overcome it and to have a career year still, in the same season. That's pretty good that you can look back on that and say, I can conquer this. I mean, if it does happen again, I can get out of it. I love when guys have their own story that they can relate to and refer to. Speaking of Boston, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, you arriving in Boston to me seemed like you found home, and I don't know if that's the way you would put it, but from a guy who was traded a ton and all over the place, there are some places where you just feel comfortable and better. And it works, and I saw your game evolve. I thought in the playoffs, again, like last year, was you really took a step forward as an individual. And it showed it this year as well. What about Boston? Assuming I'm correct that you've enjoyed your time there, like what about Boston has been different for you?
I'm sure it's a collection of a bunch of things. Everyone speaks about the culture there, and when I got there, obviously the team looked a little bit different when I got there to what it is now. But I just remember going in there. It's one of those places where everything is earned, and you don't have to be somebody with a lot of pedigree or somebody that came from something that was above everybody else. Like you could be, um, put up 100 points and you still got to earn your spot on that team. And when I came in there, it was just about the culture again. Is just one of those things where I came into camp and I knew nothing was guaranteed, especially with how the previous years of my career had gone. And I knew they lost some guys in Boston, and you're never going to replace the guys that they lost coming in. But it was just one of those things where you want to fit in, and you want to be a Bruin, and you saw how Marshy and Coyle and Brando. I could go on and on about Charlie McAvoy, those guys that, how they carry themselves at the rink and away from the rink, and just how much they care about, representing the organization and the city for that matter. So just a lot of pride. And I think for me, I felt really valued going in there. And that's one thing they do really well is you could be, a fourth liner on their AHL team or, a first liner, on the first power play in the NHL, and you're still worth the same amount to every guy in there. So there's no hierarchy or anything like that. It's everything is a team. And I think one of the other things nobody really knows about, or it's a little quieter, is that everybody that played there and lives there is around the team all the time. And so, Char's there all the time, Bergeron's there all the time. And so all these guys are around the team, and just the way they carry themselves, and you see the respect that they command around the room. And it's just kind of, you see what they built throughout their career, and they've earned that. And, they're great people first and foremost. So that kind of just helps set the stage for everybody coming in, and you understand as soon as you walk through those doors what it's like to be a Bruin.
Yeah, that's special. And those are people skills, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah.
I've told the story, like my limited story on the podcast here before, about my experience with the Detroit Red Wings. It was right at the end of my career, and I was able to go in there and try out for that team and try to make the Red Wings kind of during their heyday. And it was exactly what you just said. Like, it was the most comfortable. I played one exhibition game, I think, for them or whatever. I got hurt, and that was the end. But like, that experience, that training camp and being there was unlike any other place that I had been. Like, just how respected I felt, how valued I felt, how included I was, like all these things that make you feel comfortable, which allow you to play your best hockey, are all just people being good people to each other. Mm-hmm. And it seems simple, but it's hard in that environment because, you've been on other teams, and I mean, you're not going to disparage any teams you were on, I know, but I know that when I played, it felt different in different places. It wasn't that way everywhere I went. The NHL felt different in different spots. So, is there any lessons in there for you? Like, now that you've definitely established yourself as an NHLer, but as you've grown into the place you are now, like, how does that change the way you operate?
I think for me, I'm kind of at that age where I'm old enough to kind of play both sides of the coin where, I get along with the older guys, and, obviously I grew up watching guys like Marshy and Z and those guys. So, I'm friends with a little bit of the older guys, but you see guys come up, and Connor, my younger brother, I mean, he's those ages, the same age as those kids that are just coming in. And I think I do a good job of trying to like bridge that gap a little bit, because I think things have changed, I think, with coaching and the way the game's played. And it's just something that, sometimes there needs to be just a little bit of, teaching, trying to keep guys on the right path. And for me, it was like, you go in there and I didn't really say much my first couple of years, and you just kind of go in as a young guy, and obviously you get a little more comfortable, but you try not to step on anybody's toes. But, I had guys throughout my career kind of just like, keep me on the right path. And I think I'm at the age now where, things might be a little bit different, old school and new school. And I think I'm a good combination of that, to where I can kind of bridge that gap a little bit. So I think for me, it's just try to make guys comfortable, and just have it be fun to come to the rink. I remember, some of the best times I had are practice days, or days you don't skate, because you're just hanging out with the guys. And just that's something that I want, to try and bring to everybody. And I think that brings a group closer together as well.
Yeah, that's great. Just going to take a short break from the conversation with Morgan Geekie to give a shout out to Iron Ghost Construction. Iron Ghost, where quality and safety lead every build. Since 2014, Iron Ghost has delivered quality, safe construction. From structure to mechanics, start to finish. Iron Ghost Construction. Solid, skilled, and proven. A proud supporter of youth sports in their hometown of Vernon, BC and beyond, Iron Ghost is committed to building more than just structures. They're building futures. As a dedicated sponsor to the UMH 68, Iron Ghost has provided player scholarships at all 4 of the UMH 68 events, helping young athletes chase their dream on and off the ice. Yes, special thank you to Iron Ghost for stepping up as a platinum sponsor for the UMH 68. Very, very involved in youth sports. Want to give back to the program and to young athletes everywhere who want to be better and want to chase their dreams. And that is the company or companies like that I want to align with. So thank you to Iron Ghost. I know there's a lot of families out there that are able to come to the UMH 68 this year because of your support. And again, if there's anyone out there in the oil and gas, forestry, or minerals industry that needs a construction project, Iron Ghost is somebody you should be definitely looking up. Now, let's get back to the conversation with Morgan Geekie. I want to talk about new school, old school. I'm going to make a note on that. But I think your connection of how like the generationality, let's call it, of the NHL. Because there are guys, if you know, the studs stick around to their 30s, right? To their late 30s. And when the younger guys come in, you know, an established NHLer kind of comes in 21, 22, and you might have a 32-year-old there. That is like that gap, that 10-year gap in the real world isn't really that much. But when you've been watching these guys as a 10-year-old, right, to the time that they're 30, you've watched them play in the NHL for 10 years, and now you're a part of the club. It is surreal in a lot of ways, you know. Can you talk about that? Like that idea of having these guys that are on posters and hockey cards for you that you're now peer group with, and then getting from the spot of potentially looking up to them. I'm sure you still do, but then feeling somehow that you're equal, you're supposed to be there. Like this is your competition.
Yeah. You know, it's very tough to describe to non-hockey people, I think, for sure, or non-sports people. But you know, in the hockey world, it's crazy. I think when I was in Carolina, you know, they didn't have like the superstar or really the household name. They were just one of those organizations that obviously they won the cup, I think in 04 or 05, but kind of slid under the radar. And I remember getting drafted and didn't really know much about them as an organization. And then you spend a few years in the league and we went to Seattle, and obviously they had the expansion, and there was a wide range of players picked from prospects to older guys. And, you know, our captain was Mark Giordano, and, you know, Jordan Eberle was on that team, Jaden Schwartz. So for me going there, it was a little different. I think I'd only played I want to say 70 games maybe at that point. And, you know, I'd played a few games with Jordan Eberle. And I remember coming home and I was telling my wife, and I can tell the story now because me and Ebs are good buds, and then our wives are really good friends too. But I'd come home and be like, I don't know if I could play with this guy. It's just like, because you know him as somebody else that's just high and above where you are. And you're like, I've never been good enough to play in the NHL. I don't know why I'm playing with this guy now. And it's definitely a mental hurdle to get over. And you feel a little bit of pressure, a little bit of anxiety, and just some nerves, and you don't want to mess up because you're like, I want to prove that I belong here. But you know, you're playing with somebody that you watch score the World Junior goal against Russia. So it's just like, you do those things. And then when I went to Boston, it's the same sort of thing. You know, I got introduced to Marshy and Dave, and I was like, I know who you guys are. I'm sure you don't know who I am, but it's just different. And now that I've been here a few years in Boston, you get to understand that you know, they're just guys like me, and at one point they were all young guys coming in trying to break into the league, and they're trying to help me as much as, you know, I want to stick. So it's tough to practice that scenario or maybe understand it if you don't live it. But I think the biggest one is just understand that we're just all guys at the end of it, and away from the rink, everybody gets along. And I've been in the NHL for, you know, 4 or 5 years now, and you don't meet too many bad guys, and you can kind of, you know, call upon anyone. I'm sure you've kind of figured that out even through the rest of your hockey career, where it's just like you meet a lot of good people, and you can, you know, build those relationships for after the game. So, you know, at the end of the day, it's a lot bigger than hockey. You just maybe get a little too wrapped up in it for good reason, you know, during your career.
Yeah, no, I love the lesson there. I think is those guys, let's say Jordan Eberle, for instance, who now you're friends with, or David Pastrnak, who you just play with, him an ultra superstar in the NHL. If they made it uncomfortable, it would be that much harder because they could if they wanted to, right? They are in a control position because of what they've accomplished in their career highlights and stuff, and that matters, you know. And that's one thing that I think is really, really important, and that's whether you're on a U13 team or an NHL team, is, you know, that idea of team and camaraderie, and how do we allow each other to play their best And that is one of them, right? Like being supportive in that scenario. So I love that you bring that up, because I do think that that's a fun piece of it for me. And I think, again, like a 30-year-old journeyman coming in Detroit, that was the best I ever felt. Like I knew I was going to play my best hockey there because I felt like I belonged there, and they made me feel that way. It wasn't because I changed my mindset about it, right? They helped me feel that way.
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of those things that I think definitely helps shape you as a player, and more importantly, a person. But you're right; it helps build your confidence, and if they allow you to go out there and make mistakes and play the right way, obviously you're there for a reason. They're not just going to put any Joe Schmo with them. So you have to understand that you belong there, and they feel like you belong there, and just do your best to go out and play your game.
Yeah, that's a good one too. I was going to say that. Thanks for saying that. Like, somebody thought you were supposed to be there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody put you there for a reason. And if there is any kind of waning self-belief about that, like, trust the opinion of that person in that scenario, right? Like, yes, I am supposed to be here, because that is a tough transition, even stepping foot from the AHL to the NHL. I mean, that initial idea is like, am I ready? Am I supposed to be here? Who am I to be here? There's a lot of self-doubt that can creep in. So, I do think there's different ways to go about that to start creating that confidence. Tell me though, like, from this scenario, the names I mentioned that you were ahead of, like, how does that sound that you scored more goals than Mikko Rantanen this year? You scored more goals than Jack Eichel. Like, that's so freaking cool in my head. Like, how does that work in your head?
To be honest, I haven't thought about it at all. I've been told a couple times that that's like how things played out, and I was like, I don't know if they played all the games this year, but it's just one of those things where I just try to keep my head, or keep my game, in my lane. And I obviously I watch hockey. I'm a big fan of hockey, and I've watched a lot of the playoffs, and those guys to me are still like above and beyond the player I am right now. And I think that just kind of, in this league, there's a lot of things that you can always do to grow. And you see the way that McKinnon skates, or Rantanen plays, and Eichel, and all those guys you just mentioned. It's like they bring so many different things to the game, where it's like they could score 20 goals and still bring an impact to the game every night, and you see that. And it's like when I think McDavid scored 60 or 50, and it's like he scores 20 or 30, and we still treat him the same, every game we play him. It's not like, oh, he's got 60 goals now, like we got to keep an extra guy on him. It's like, it doesn't matter who it is. It's like, if 97's on the ice, there's one, maybe two guys on him. So it's just about growing your game and being able to be an impact player. And I had a lot of things go right for me this year, towards the end especially. But it's just it's definitely cool for sure. And looking back on it, if you would have told me that would have happened this year, I don't know if I would have believed you. But it's something super cool. And like I said, a lot of these accomplishments you don't think of, but I think when you look back on it and your kids look back on it, it's pretty cool. So, I'm a big fan of hockey as anybody else. So it's cool to say that.
That is cool. Well, and it's the social proof, like, and I kind of brought that up almost for like the reaffirmation, just even for yourself, right? Like, sometimes we won't believe it, right, until it actually happens. Now that it's happened, it is something that needs to be absorbed and digested, and maybe allows even another step, right? Like, yeah, like I do belong, right? And I am a goal scorer in this league, and I can be a 30-goal guy, and will be a 30-goal guy. Sometimes that mental manifestation is needed as well, right? So, anyways, I think that's cool. Congratulations on that. Maybe it's a good time to just veer back a little bit and go back to the grassroots aspect of it. One thing I love about your story, because my kids are all going through that WHL age now, draft and everything else, so I'm a little bit more, let's say, absorbed in it, and the stats, and seeing what's going on. And for yourself to be, I think it was what I wrote down here, 90th overall to Tri-Cities, which was a 5th round selection, to moving up in the NHL draft to being a 67th third round selection is not something that happens very often. So I just kind of would like to talk about maybe that, what I mean? Like, the idea of how you got there, where you felt you were at as a Bantam, like, what kind of hockey were you playing at the time? Did you want to be a player? Was that something that was on the radar for you?
Yeah. I think coming from a smaller center the way I did, I think you're kind of sheltered to just how good players are, especially in the age group that I was in. So going into the Bantam draft, I honestly had no idea, and maybe that was my dad's doing, just not really telling me anything. And I think it all worked out for the better, so it's fine. But I mean, we used to get, I don't know what it's like now, but we used to get like the questionnaires. You get the emails, and you fill out like all these things, and you get like 10 of them, and you always wonder in the back of your mind, like, oh, who's getting these? And it was an interesting process for sure. And I wanted to play in the Western League. I think, growing up watching the Brandon Wheat Kings was our team, and they had the Memorial Cup there, which was really cool when I was growing up. So I think when you go through that process, at least for me, it was just like my parents at least didn't really put much pressure on it. So I obviously knew when it was happening, and I felt I was good enough to get drafted. I didn't know when it was. And I hadn't really told anyone if I was going to go college or if I was going to go junior. So it was just one of those things that was going to happen when it happened. And I think I was in school at the time, and uh, I thought it was Prince George initially, because I think one of my teachers had told me it was Prince George, but they traded the pick, I guess, the year prior or something. So
Yeah.
a little bit of confusion, but it was all good. And yeah, after that, I mean, it was good. I missed my first camp. I went to baseball nationals my 15-year-old year, and then 16-year-old year, I got cut. It was like after the first exhibition tournament, and went back to play U18s, and then I made it as a 17-year-old. And that was kind of honestly the same story as this year, where I, was scratched at the start of the year playing 6, 8 minutes a night. And then towards the end of the year, my coach, who's, honestly one of my favorite coaches, and I thought Mike Williamson, he helped kind of shape me into more of a professional player, and, kind of move me up in the lineup towards the end of the year. And I grew my game there, and then had a really good year, my 18 year, which was the year I got drafted. So I got drafted the year to the NHL the year after I was eligible. So I didn't get drafted my first year. And after that happened, I kind of was like, hey, well, I'll just go to school. And, my now wife was going to school at University of Regina. She was playing hockey there. And I kind of just like in the back of my mind, I was like, all right, well, I'll just play out my WHL. They got a good scholarship program, and we'll go from there. And then I think honestly at that point, when you stop worrying so much about the outcome, it helps a little bit with the on ice product. And I had a really good year, my 18 year, and got drafted to Carolina. And then, yeah, it's kind of led me across the country, back and forth, and I've kind of been everywhere now. But it's good.
Well, let's chat. So, okay. So I love that again. So I didn't even realize that didn't play as a 16-year-old. Obviously baseball was a big piece of what you were doing at the time, or even the 15-year-old camp. And your dad spoke about that on the interview with him, and he was pretty impressed with how supportive Tri-City was, but just even where you were at as a player and as an athlete, right? Like that this was still important to you, right? And that was an important thing to keep a part of. But didn't play at 16. Like, that's the end of the world for some of these guys right now, right? Not playing as a 16-year-old, and then again, and playing as a rookie, and then not getting drafted in your draft year. That's the end of the world again. The road's over. Just speak about that, like your timeline and how your timeline worked out to be a timeline that was successful for you.
Yeah. I think I came in as a 16, and I mean, I was drafted at like 5'10", like 135. I was tiny. Like I hadn't really grown, and really light. And then when I was 16, I think it was the Tri-City always had like the preseason tournament in Seattle. So there was like 5, 6 teams. I remember playing like 2, 3 games, and I was like, this is really fast. The guys are really big. And I played a game at 15, I remember, and I don't remember much from it. That was with Tri-City. So at the end of the year, I played one game, and then came in full time as a 16 to try and make the team. And I just remember being like, I don't know if I could do this. Like I was kind of just overwhelmed, and maybe a little, scared of the rejection of being cut. And I remember texting my dad being like, I don't know if I can play here. And it was just a lot of like not knowing. And I think it ended up being really good for me not to go. I think you see a lot of guys get rushed in situations, especially maybe highly touted prospects, or guys that are kind of in a different situation.
Right.
and that's not always the best for development. And I think you see it in the NHL too, where they rush guys to the NHL because they're a high pick, or they come out of college and they're like, I'm not going to go to the American League. And um, I think being, I guess, humble is a word, I guess, but just having an open mind to being like, maybe I'm not ready, and that was a big one for me. And I still got cut. I still didn't make the team as a 16-year-old, and I played maybe 9 games that year or so. And I remember going in at Christmas is when I played a game in Prince George, and I felt like had so much more confidence, just ready to play, more apt to the competition, and just like getting puck touches in my skills, and one more year of just getting stronger and a little bit faster and developing my game more definitely helped me do that as a when I became a full-time junior player at 17. And it's hard. I think every level you go up, when you obviously you go first line to fourth line, and you work your way up to the first line hopefully, and you go back to the fourth line. So I think physically and mentally it's tough, especially going, I was playing in U18s. I was playing 25 minutes a night, and you're going out every other shift, and it's that's all you're used to. And then trying to go into junior as a 17-year-old and be a difference maker in 8 minutes it just helps you grow your game. But mentally it's a struggle, and I think that's where I kind of got into like, okay, well, maybe I'll just go to school. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. And it's hockey's a really mentally tough sport, and especially when there's other people making the decisions for you, based on your playing time and stuff. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't change anything that I've done to be where I'm at. I don't need to be a first round pick. And I think you understand that when you get here, that it doesn't matter how you get here. It doesn't matter how long you've been here. It's like, you can say you're in the NHL, and it's all the work that you've put into this. And, a lot of it's luck, but, hard work will go a long way.
Yeah. What a great, I mean, so as a 17-year-old, 25 points in 66 games, and it's not all about the stat line, of course, and minutes and opportunity mean a lot with that. But to your point, like the next year, the year you did get drafted as a draft plus one, 90 points, 65-point difference. There had to be something in your game that changed, as well as I would assume, like the person and or the physical size too. Like, what was the biggest difference there to have that great big leap?
I'm sure getting bigger, stronger was a big one. And my dad always says, like, it's an 17-year-old rookie league, where those are the kids that really make a difference in the league. And obviously there's exceptions to the rule, and you see that, that McKinnon kid now that's better than any player I've ever seen in the Western League. But, I think for me, it was just confidence. And, mentally, I finished the year really strong. We didn't make the playoffs, which, maybe was a blessing in disguise to get a longer summer and get, stronger and faster. And I came into camp, and I just knew, it was a lot of self-confidence just to be like, I know I can compete and play and be a difference maker. And, Mike Williamson, I mentioned him before, but he kind of just pulled me aside and said, like, there's a lot of potential, there's a lot of room to grow, but it's something that you have to grab the bull by the horns and take it. And I think, selfishly, I was like, I grew a lot that year. And it's just like, you face problems you didn't have to face. But I think when you start to see your game grow and trend in the right direction, it's good. So I think for me, the main one was confidence, and just being given the opportunity to, grow as a player.
That's awesome. So how did that how was that whole draft experience for you? You being a third rounder is obviously a lot of, discussions, I would assume, and phone calls and interviews, and from going not on the radar and not feeling great about it, I'm sure, to being one of the guys, that must have been a fun journey as well.
It was good, yeah. Honestly, it was probably a good thing that I was a draft plus one, just because, like, there's no pressure at all at that point, and I just kind of went out and played. I was never like, okay, well, I got to be a top 10 player, or I got to be a first round pick. There was never that, I guess, goal or stress or weight of anything on me.
Yeah.
I just kind of went out and played, and it was good. As the year went, I was having a little bit of success. It was just you get a few phone calls, and my agent at the time, would reach out with a few things, and it was good. I went to the combine, which was a really cool experience, and that it's very intimidating when you go in, especially just the way they have it set up in Buffalo. Everything's all connected, and they don't tell you, but like they only space the interviews like 15, 20 minutes apart, and teams don't really care how long the interviews go. Some teams have like the timer for 14 minutes, and at the key bank, it's everything's in a circle. So you could have one with the New York Islanders on the east side, and you have to go all the way over to the west side at 5 minutes later, and it's super stressful. It's a great experience, and they don't tell you that stuff. So it's like if you're late for the interview, it's not the team's fault. It's your fault. So it's always fun looking back on it now, like how much stress and how important that was. But I think like it's such a great experience, and obviously it's one of those things that not everyone gets to say they did, but looking back on it, I think, I improved a lot, speaking wise, just how to carry myself as a pro, and teams put a lot of weight on that stuff, and how you are off the ice. And it was lots of fun. So to do it as a guy that wasn't supposed to be there was maybe a little awkward, because you see all these guys that are like highly touted prospects, and some of your buddies that are, have always been there, but it kind of just proves that, if you're out there and you're good, they'll find you. Like, it's just one of those things that there's not a lot of players that slip through the cracks, especially in a sport like this in Canada.
Yeah, for sure. What you mentioned your agent there, and that's one thing that I get asked about all the time. And when do you get one, or when should you, or and if somebody isn't trying to find you, is there a problem? And all this kind of stuff that people get wrapped up in. What was your process like for finding an agent, and when did you do it?
Yeah, so we got our first agent. Me and Connor actually had the same agency when we were, I think I was going into just after the Bantam draft, maybe. I didn't have one for the Bantam draft. And then Connor had the same one, I think a little bit earlier, just because the family aspect was already there. But yeah, I mean, it was more of a handshake thing than anything. And it was just one of those things where we kind of had an agreement, and obviously you're not making any money. We weren't, paying anything to have him work. He was more of an advisor, I guess.
Yeah.
And he definitely like kept us on the right path, especially the Western League. And, definitely thankful that I had one, I guess. But I mean, I agree. I feel like now everyone needs an agent, everyone needs an advisor, and you're paying thousands of dollars to these guys, but there's only so much you can do at that age. I do think it's important, but it's just one of those things where, like I said earlier, if you're good, they'll find you, and it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So I definitely advise as you get going up the ranks and, get into junior hockey, you may need one, but, playing U18, U16 is just one of those things that, it's not crazy important. In my opinion, I'm also 26, don't have a kid, and pretty well versed in the hockey community.
Sure. Well, yeah, I mean, exactly. So as far as value provided, like what do you think would be value, like why parents maybe should consider or be looking, or maybe not be looking? Like, what would be your suggestion in that? Where's the benefits and maybe not the benefits?
I think the benefits are, especially with a reputable agent, those guys are very well versed in, everything behind the scenes, whether that's, camps or scouts, different things like that. And they can maybe get you an in. And I know we had like a scouting camp almost, where they brought all the agency guys in and had camps there and scouts come in and watch everybody. So it's definitely good for exposure. But I mean, what you guys are doing with the Up My Hockey thing, and I'm going back to help my dad for his, this weekend. I see the exposure that kids get now, especially with social media and everything. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like it's that hard to get out there, especially with great programs like your guys. So, I mean, it's one of those things that it's like, if you want to, you can, and if you're nervous about you're going to miss out on things, then sure. But it's not the be all end all, I wouldn't say, of a kid's hockey career. And I think some people put a little bit too much stress on it.
Yeah. A little bit ego driven too, I find, right? Like who they're with, and do you have one or not?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. Anyways, to anyone out there, I think no one's going to get you drafted. I think that's how some people think, right? Like they're not going to get you drafted. Like if you find a good relationship, that you value the relationship. I think I would kind of push people that way. I don't know how you feel about that, Morgan, but like if you value like the phone call, and if you value the the conversation, the input, more as an inner circle type person, someone to share with. I think that is the relationship. It should be relationship driven, not necessarily results driven.
For sure.
Because if you're in it for a result, you're probably going to be disappointed. And if they're telling you they can give you a result, they're probably also not telling the truth.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally correct. And the relationship, I think, is the big one because, agents are normally in it for the long haul if that's the thing you're into. And being able to, call them up whenever you need or just have the comfort of a phone call when you need one is super important in that process for sure.
So making that move for you well, first off to ask you, I played in Spokane for 4 years. I see that you were in Tri the whole time. And we back in the 90s had the biggest rivalry in WHL, at least according to the referees that I talked to. Like they were waiting to mark their calendars in the Western Conference to see if they would get assigned the Spokane Tri-Cities games. Did that rivalry still exist in your time there?
Yeah, it was huge. I mean, we played them. You play so many times, like in teams like the U.S. division, and we played every game. New Year's Eve was always in Tri-City. I don't know if it was like that when you were there, but
it was.
So that was like you always look forward to that one, just because it was so nuts. And Tri-City, we got the fans that were there were great, but we didn't very often sell out a crowd. I wouldn't say, but we always sold out that game, at least when I was there. So it was just like one of those things. And I think when you come in, the older guys, I mean, you same way for you. It's just like the older guys hate them, so you hate them, and it's so fun to play. And we had so much fun during those games. They were so good too. They had the Yamamoto brothers, and I know some guys that played there before I was there. Same thing. It's like they hated coming to Tri-City because the rink sucked, and it's like I know how bad your guys' locker room was, the away locker room, but it's like we love playing there, and the fans were great, and kids taking off their shirts for Cotton Eye Joe, and it was awesome. So it's one of those things that those rivalries that I don't think will ever get old for sure. It's only 2 hours down the road, so
I know that was wild. It's funny you bring that game up because one of the years there, and I can't remember which one, but we got shit kicked on that New Year's Eve game, and our coach at the time, it was Brian Maxwell, so I guess would have been one of my first 2 years there. We weren't allowed, like New Year's Eve, like you said, right? So everyone's has something going on after when you get home, there's a party you're supposed to go to or whatever. We weren't allowed to have the lights on. We weren't allowed to talk. There was no nothing. So like it was like legitimately, I remember being underneath, trying to go to sleep in the bus, and it's like Happy New Year, Happy New Year. Like that's the way like we were. It was like one of those junior memories that you never forget. But yeah, good stuff. We played, and it's funny you say that. I think we played Tri-Cities 20 some times one year. Like when you considered like 3 or 4 times or 5 times an exhibition, right? Like the 9 times or whatever it was in the league, and then we had a 7-game series with them. Yeah, and it was a freaking war.
Yeah, it's a bloodbath every time. Yeah,
every time.
No, it's great. It's a story, and like the fans love it too. Like it's not just a player thing. It's like it's everybody in the building. So it's lots of fun.
What about the step to the NHL? I know the first pro camp is usually a pretty big eye opener, as far as like being around NHL players as a young teenager, right? And seeing that, and speak to that if you want to. But I think, putting on that, being an AHLer and being a pro is a whole new world other than the WHL. Even though the WHL prepares you really well for that league, it is a different level. So yeah, talk to me about either your first camp experience or maybe that being a pro for the first time.
Yeah, it's definitely an eye-opening experience, and it's everything that you kind of dream of as a kid, I guess. I mean, you go in there you have development camp, but it's just normally prospects and some guys that have been there a few times, and you go to the actual camp, and we went in like a couple days early for rookie camp, so it's the same feeling as development camp, and you're a little more comfortable, and then you see like the NHLers walk in, and this is their job. I mean, they're putting food on the table for their families, and it's their livelihood. And it's one of those things that's a super eye-opening experience, and you realize how quick it gets. And I think for me, the first like couple of practices were just like how crisp everything was. Like guys just don't miss passes. Guys, don't screw up drills, and execution is just like so clean every time. And as a guy coming from junior, obviously it's a lot faster. So like the first pro camp, I remember Like our first couple practices, I think we had Bill Peters there the first year, second year, and he was like notorious for not using a board. He would just like point at the ice and kind of draw his drills. Like if you didn't know the drills, you didn't really know anything. And even his morning skates, like my first morning skate with him, he kind of just was shouting drills. And I'm like, I have no idea what this guy's doing at all. So I'm getting in the back of the line, just like continually like, you know, getting to the back, can't figure it out. And it's crazy to look back on now because I'm like, how do you not understand what's going on? But it's just like the pressure, and you're so nervous, and everyone's so good. And like you'd said, like you see these guys that you watched on TV, you know, growing up. So it's just like one of those things where it's an eye-opening experience, but it's super fun. I mean, you walk into their locker room, they got the Bauer tent set up, and they got the CCM and the Warrior, and you see all these things as a kid where it's like you're not paying for sticks anymore, and you kind of get to pick your custom curve and get your name on your stick, and it's just like, you know, it's when you take a step back and realize where you came from as a hockey player. It's one of those things where it's like you just try to take it all in, and even looking back, like I'm only 26, but it's like you look back on it as a 19 year old, and it's like, wow, you've come a long way, and it's a lot of fun, and you maybe take that for granted during the process.
Sure. What was your big takeaway as far as the game? I know you said execution, but on a personal level, like for you to not make the team that first year, and I don't know what your expectations were like with that, if that's really where you thought you should be, or what where your heart was at, but you ended up being in the AHL. Where was your individual game at compared to where you were playing?
I think for me, it was the speed of the game. I was never like a fast skater, never really big on like the power skating or whatever. And I kind of relied a lot on my brain and a lot of my shot, and, you know, some skills like that. And I think that goes a long way because I think, you know, to me anyways, hockey's getting a lot faster. It's getting a little bit dumber. It's a little more straight line. And, you know, there's a lot of skill in the game, just maybe not as much IQ as there should be, in my opinion. And so being able to do those things is like one thing, but being able to do them at a high speed is another. So, you know, if you can't keep up, it's tough to do anything. And you see guys like Mark Stone, and how well he thinks the game, and, you know, plays well on both sides of the puck, but how much he's had to work on his skating to be, you know, an impact player and Stanley Cup champion, and things like that, where you got to figure out ways to, you know, stick at that next level. And for me at that time, it was just like, I got to improve my skating. And that was always like my big thing through the draft growing up. I was just never a good skater. So just try to improve as much as I could at that, while trying not to take away from other things.
Right. Awesome. What was your process to improve that? How did you focus on that? Because I do think, and I'll just preface this with the idea that sometimes kids get told, right, where deficiencies may lay, but then they're not really told the recipe card for how to do that, you know? So what was your recipe card for improving it?
For me, it was just, I think one of them was being able to change speeds was one. Just being able to speed up a little bit and slow down. You know, if you're always slow, it's pretty easy to play defense against you. And same thing, if you're always fast, you understand what's coming. But for me, I had good power skating experience in Carolina. They helped me a lot. And then the skills coach there, Sergey Sanford, I guess he wasn't skills coach. He was player development. But I dropped an eyelet on my skate, and that was like the one big thing that was like, wow, this is so much easier. Because I remember growing up, I would just cinch my skates tight, like all the way to the top. My dad was the only one that could do them because he was the only one that could do them tight enough, and that's how I did it all growing up. And then, you know, I got to pro, and they're like, it was the new thing to like drop an eyelet. I'm like, I don't really, feels uncomfortable. It feels like my foot's gonna fall on my skate. And one practice, I just decided to do it, and that's like been the be all end all of my skating journey. Like that way, just being able to get in positions a little better, and then a lot of strength training, just getting stronger. And I think that comes with maturity, like just being able to like feel your body more. And you see how like the really good skaters are all pretty smooth. So it's like trying to get to that point where it's just like you want to make it as effortless as possible, so you can put more focus on to other areas of the game.
This episode is powered by BioSteel, the hydration choice trusted by pros and parents alike. And now it's even easier to grab. The new BioSteel variety pack is available at Costco, Canada. You get 24 bottles, 3 flavors, rainbow twist, blue raspberry, and black cherry, all with no sugar, no caffeine, and no junk. Just clean, effective hydration that works as hard as you do. BioSteel is the hydration partner of the UMH 68. I am super excited to have a company like BioSteel on board. Again, supporting our athletes with clean, effective hydration. Really happy to be with them, have their products hydrating our athletes, and excited to announce that partnership with BioSteel. As a listener of the Up My Hockey podcast, you also have access to BioSteel and at a discounted rate using the UMH68 promo code. If you get to the BioSteel website, we also have the affiliate link in the show notes. So if you want to look at the show notes, check out the affiliate link there. Use that, get to BioSteel, and use the UMH68 promo code. You will get 20% off your order. That is one way to say thank you to me and to Up My Hockey and to the sponsors of the UMH 68. It's amazing when sponsors want to step up and be involved in a great event. You know, obviously they have a lot of options. And so when they choose something like the UMH 68 and they choose Up My Hockey as a platform for them to align with, it is very helpful for someone like me to show some love back to them. And that means you, as a listener of the Up My Hockey podcast, or as an attendee of the UMH 68 Invitational, or if you have been touched by by Up My Hockey in any way. And guess what? If you drink hydration products and you want to look after yourself, why not choose BioSteel and use the promo code? It lets them know that, you know what, this vehicle of Up My Hockey is someone that BioSteel should be happy to partner with, because we are saying that, yes, we approve BioSteel, we enjoy the podcast, we want to give back to the sponsors that are being a part of this event. So it's one way to say thanks. It's also a great way to get a discount off of regular pricing. And BioSteel thanks you, I thank you, and your athlete will thank you. So again, UMH68 is the promo code for 20% off. The affiliate link, which I think is helpful to me, if you use that, it just makes sure that it gets registered to our account. Use that; it's in the show notes. And thank you, BioSteel, for being a part of the Up My Hockey group. Now let's get back to the conversation with Morgan Geekie. The ankle flexion and the foot strength, and I don't know like if that is in your training repertoire, but it sure has been just in my own house, and even with me personally. Like, I'm into the barefoot shoe thing. You know, I'm into like the individual foot balance board thing now. Like, to be able to have and maintain strength and stability through your foot is, I think that's like, to me, that's like the like, people aren't doing that. Like, players aren't doing that. Like, it's you're in your skates and you're doing squats and doing all these things, but can your foot actually work properly? And I think there's a lot of power in there that guys aren't finding.
Yeah, and I mean, the big examples they use are like Crosby and McDavid, like all these guys, like how much ankle flexion they get on their skates. And obviously everyone's built differently. Like, legs are different sizes, shins are different lengths, and it's all going to come into play. But I mean, you might as well learn from the best when it comes to things like that. And I totally agree. It's like, you would never think that it's important because you have your foot in your boot the whole time and you kind of overlook it. But it's like, if you can learn to use it and be able to, move your skate back and forth. I remember reading like that Hudson kid in Montreal, his dad was like making him go out with their skates loose and just like mess around with their skates. And I was like, I might start doing that just for something to try. I was like, if you watch him skate and how well he moves laterally and how good of a skater he is, it's like, why wouldn't you try things like that? You may never be as good as he will, but any help's good help. So
yeah, I agree. Yeah, and when I'm talking with players, it's like, well, especially at your guys' level, the power distribution across the blade of your skate does matter. 100% when it comes to edges or whatever. And if we're talking like 1% is like a big gain where you guys are at.
Mm-hmm.
If you can find that little edge, right, that incremental increase, that's huge, and that can make the difference. So I do think when guys are curious about their development, even at the level you're at, it totally helps. And I think that you talk about the culture piece. That's what I've heard time and time again too, is when you get into these environments, these professional high performance NHL environments where the culture is right, the guys are always trying to find something, right? Like, and you're looking over your shoulder at what Jimmy's doing down there and Johnny's doing, and kind of sharing secrets and trying to just get better all the time. And I think that's an exciting environment to be in, a growth environment.
Yeah, and that's one big thing I think I've learned. I mean, everywhere professionally, it's just like there's no secrets anywhere, and especially on teams, like that's the end goal for everyone is to win a championship. And we won in Charlotte my first year, so that was a super cool experience as a pro. Just a good entryway, and you kind of get every aspect of the game. But guys are always out to help other guys. There's nobody gatekeeping any secrets or not telling you or sharing information with you. It's just like I'm trying to help you as much as you can. Like I learned so much from Dave this year, Pasternak, sorry. Just like things that I'd never thought of before that make total sense when you think about them. But I could give a couple examples. It's just like he's like, I like playing with a righty all the time, and he played with Bergeron, he played with Krejci, like all these righties, and I never understood why. And he's like, if you play with two lefties, you have a one-timer on every side all the time. So it's like if you give a pass lefty to lefty, there's always a one-timer, and that's a lot more common than it is to play with two righties on a line. So he said, like, all growing up, I played with righties and things like that. And it's like, you see in his game just the ability to make plays, laterally. You can't do that with a lefty. I mean, you can, I guess, but it doesn't attribute to much, or the chance isn't as high as it is with a righty. And that like leads into, a one-timer a lot of the time. So I think like I improved my one-timer a lot. I try to learn a lot from him that way. The way he hides pucks on his stick, like when he's passing, and like just all these things that like all you have to do sometimes is ask, because guys will tell you, and they might not be able to tell you, exactly how to do it, but they'll show you what they do. And, everybody's trying to learn all the time. So it's just like, I'm trying to stick around as long as I can, and any little bit of information helps.
Yeah, that's great. Did you happen to see that Granlund shot where he rolled his wrists over and like lost the top hand on his stick? Did you see that wrist
I don't
shot?
know if I did. Was that in the like playoffs?
Yeah.
I think I did. Yeah. I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, it was my kids and I broke it down. It was pretty wild because he was like, to me, and I think it was very obvious to the goalie that he was like going low, right? Like probably 5-hole. And then as he was rolling the puck down his stick, like to open up that blade to then have it go to go top shelf. It's like, oh my God, the mastery and the the time spent to have the timing of that. But like, talk about deception, and you're talking about Pasternak doing that with his passes, like to execute it at the level you guys are at with the pace and how good everyone is also trying to defend, like all those little things make such a big difference.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I mean, and he's told me, he's like, you've probably seen his shootout goals where he like tucks it behind his back skate kind of. And like, I can't even like try to do it with the curve I have. I got a couple of his curves to like see if I can maybe add something, but yeah. You see the way he does it, I'm like, where did you learn that? Like, how do you decide that you're just going to like put the puck behind you and almost like sweep it back to the strong side? And he's like, have you watched like those floor ball guys? Like they do like where they have it on the toe and they just sling it around and then they whip it in the net. He's like, that's where I learned it, is like, if they can do it, like you hide it behind your skate almost. So it's like the goalie's got to look around. And if he leans over to his glove side and you go back blocker, it's like you're already gaining an advantage on that. So if you can learn to shoot it from there, I mean, you see it in his passes. He does the same sort of thing, like off that one leg. So it's just like a lot of these things that you'd never think about, but it's like, there's no secrets. It's everybody wants everybody to get better.
Yeah. Yeah. But the beauty is he has thought of it. Right. And I love that. Yeah. Because he's curious enough and is engaged enough, right. To be seeing something and finding an opportunity for him to use it somewhere. And why I like that is because that's definitely a mindset piece, right? Like, how are you engaging in your development and in your growth? And some of these guys become elite because that's the way that they approach it, Mm-hmm. Super cool. I wanted to bring it back. You were talking about the kind of you being a bridge between some of these old school guys and some of the new school guys. And there is a bit of more of a generational gap, I think, than there has been in a long time in the NHL, and this is from me, an outsider, right? Like I am totally an outsider now. I don't see it. I just see it through my lens from my office here. But can you speak to that a little bit more? Like what would be the difference between an 18-year-old coming in now that's really good and maybe that 35, 36-year-old that's on his way out the door? Like what's the difference between those two players right now?
I think, I mean, there's honestly, like you said, there's a lot different. I think I don't know what you want to call it, but it's tough to describe it. Just not how they carry themselves, but like the older guys, like the older guys were brought in was very old school. Everyone was it was cut and dry what was right and wrong, and there was no trying anything new. And coaches got on you right away, and just like coaches yelled at you all the time, and it was like one of those things where that was kind of how I grew up. Was like everybody, like at least my dad at the time, felt like he was kind of a hard ass and was like more vocal and like telling me what I was doing wrong. And it's like I'm going out there to prove him wrong, be like, I can do it properly, like just watch me and I'll show you.
Right.
Whereas now I feel like with kids coming up, there's maybe a fine line just with how, generations of kids have changed, and just being able to convey that message a little differently. So I think, the old school guys maybe on their way out are more used to the first thing that I said, and then having new guys come in where, it's a lot more skill oriented. The games, you see like the Michigan goals guys are trying, or like the moves they're trying on entries. And it's like, those things didn't exist when guys were breaking in the league before. So it's like that gap to see guys come in with that kind of confidence and not really have it waver is maybe where, there's a little bit of a teaching point, being like, hey, for sure that might work in game 25 and it looks really cool and it's on the highlight reel, but you watch the playoffs now and it's like, there's no goals like that. Everything's earned, everything's in the hard areas of the ice. And with so much skill, you're always taught, at least I was growing up, is like, you want to be physical on those guys because you want to push them out of the game. So it's like, there's a really fine line. You see players like McDavid has all the skill in the world, but he's not trying these things, when it's 1-0 with 3 minutes left. And I think that's just like a bridge a bridge you need to gap a little bit, or maybe my words are wrong, but just being able to, focus more on game management necessarily than skill development. And I think that's one big thing, is like games are won and lost, and, wins and losses kind of define how long you stay in this league. And you see guys that win the Stanley Cup that were on a fourth line, they get a really nice contract. And it's not because, you put up 30 goals or 40 goals. It's because you're a winner, and teams want winners. And any way you can contribute, that's, up and down the lineup, that's going to be important. And you see like guys like Pat Maroon win 3 in a row, Alec Martinez, like these guys that are, getting a little older, teams see what they bring to the table. They're not going to go undressing guys and scoring 50 goals, but it's like they bring things that are important to the team. So it's like just being able to, add a little more structure to the game and make it important to do the right things.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate that answer. I think maybe you can add some color to this, but it sounds like what is good about, I think, like the way the game is changing, that you are allowed a little more individualism.
Totally.
I think that piece is good. Like, I think from a skill standpoint, I also think from like a dressing standpoint, like we all wore black suits when I was there. We all looked the exact same, there was the conformity was a big thing. Right. And now you can be an individual, you can wear your own style. I think that's celebrated and probably still chirped in its own circles, but it all with good humor. Right. And, so I think that there's room for that, and I like it, but I do think that there seems to be a little bit of a step back from the value of team potentially too, from these younger guys that are coming in. Maybe a touch more entitlement, if I'm allowed to use that word. I guess that's where the culture and the value of the old guys come in too, right? To try and help mold that, this young, budding, talented individual into a Boston Bruin or into a Calgary Flame or wherever you're at, right? Am I fair in saying that?
Totally. And I think I mean, for example, like my younger brother has the most, like Connor has the most amount of confidence I've ever seen. Like when we play against each other, the stuff that he tries, I'm like, I don't know how you're doing this. I have no idea. And I'll rib him about it all the time. Like, when are you going to try this? He's like, I have no idea. I don't know what I'm going to do. And, he came into the playoffs with Tampa Bay this year and, was physical, played the right way. And, it never really crossed his mind, but I think he came into that organization was like, you see guys doing things the right way. And it makes you want to conform to the way they've done it. Like, you don't just win 2 cups and go to the playoff or the Stanley Cup finals 3 years in a row without doing the things right. So it's like, it's always nice to have, all the skill in the world, but to be able to know when to use it, when to back off a little bit. That's the big part. And I mean, you still see it in the playoffs that the teams with all the depth that play the right way. And that's like one thing about Florida. It's like, you see how hard they check and how hard they defend, and those things lead to goals. And then that's when the skill comes out. So it's just about picking your spots for those. And I think now, especially with all the skill everybody has, it's like, well, I can do this. Like, I should have the leeway to be able to do it. And it's almost one of those things where you have to realize it's earned, not given. And once you earn that ability to do it, go ahead. There's obviously a reason that you're allowed to, but I agree. I think entitlement is maybe the right word. And it's not to say that it's not easily moldable, especially with good people. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I can't believe I haven't touched that yet. But what you're kind of, you have a little brother who is just a rookie in the NHL and who's part of the the new group. And I'm not saying that he's an entitled one. I'm not saying that at all. He's a riot. I love his personality. I mean, like, he seems like he's a really fun guy to be around. And I imagine the guys in Tampa Bay probably appreciate him a lot too. But so you have a firsthand experience, is all I mean, from a family standpoint of watching him grow up and watching his journey. How have you served to be that bridge with him? Are you somebody that he calls during the season when things are maybe not going the way he wants them to?
a little bit. I mean, honestly, I think I try to stay out of his way as much as I can. I don't want to like be a helicopter brother or anything like that. And I think a lot of those scenarios, situations you go through help mold you as a player too. And I mean, he got sent down, I think around the All-Star break, and we talked something about like a little bit about that, and just those situations that you get put in. But it's one of those things where it helps you grow as a person, and I'm more there as mentally. If you need to call somebody, like, I've experienced a few things, and I'm always here to lean on. But it's not like I wanted him to shape his career the way he's going to do it, and we've had completely different paths to the NHL, and a lot of things that I've experienced he may never, or maybe he'll experience even more when it comes to the variety of things. But
Yeah.
it's just like one of those things where it's his path, and he's going to forge it the way he wants to. And I mean, you see it, with how loud and outgoing he is. I mean, he can talk to anyone and kind of lights up a room with how he carries himself, and he's awesome. But it's just like, I could never explain to you how to do that, because that's just not who I am. So when it comes to that, I mean, we honestly talk more throughout the year about other things. We play video games together to keep in touch, and we FaceTime, and he calls me more in the summer because he loves getting, different sticks to try and showing me them. So it's like that's more about what we talk about, not necessarily the X's and O's, but it's lots of fun, and not a lot of people can say they had a brother play in the NHL, for sure.
Yeah, no, that's really wild. What a cool thing to share. The AHL, how much did you value your time there? I mean, I'll say that I could generally in my career spot the guys in the locker room that had never been in the AHL and the guys that had been. And even if they were stars at the time that had been in the NHL, there was something that was more grounded about them, more appreciative, more grateful. It seemed to be. Do you look back on that AHL season as being a really important piece of your puzzle and puts you in a better place to be an NHLer now?
Yeah, it was huge. I mean, it's always tough going back down. I got sent down once, but I think for me, looking back on it, my whole experience, it's like you spend so much time with the guys in the AHL, just because, like, normally, at least now anyways, it's a little bit younger than it was before, just with the veteran rule and things like that, and it more of a developmental league. But I mean, those guys you go to development camp with, you make good relationships with them. You go to the AHL, and I went to the AHL and didn't really know what to expect out of Charlotte, and it's a great city, and spent so much time with the guys, and it's just like one of those things that I agree. We always bug the guys that have never played in the NHL. They're just silver spooners. They got the easy path, and but it's something. You're right. It's just like I don't even know if there's a way you can kind of just tell, and it's not a bad thing by any means. But it's just like I don't know. I don't even know how to word it, but it's almost like a grind. Like every game's a grind. You're on the bus, or like when we flew, you fly with everybody else. Like you're not chartering a jet. You're just flying WestJet or you're flying Delta, and you're getting on the early flight to get there, and you're pregame nap, and you're having Subway for pregame, and like those things. Like it's just like there's so much more camaraderie. I feel like amongst those guys, and just like how you grow as a player, and like just the relationships you build. My time in the AHL was like I don't know why I would be at all where I am, especially the fact that we won. I think it kind of helped.
Yeah.
It was a really good team and a really good situation that we came into. Our leadership group was awesome, and our coach Mike Vellucci, he's the assistant in Pittsburgh now. He was awesome. He put me in my place, I think, a couple games in, and scratched me a few times the first year. And I think you figure things out pretty quickly. And at the time, you're like, I don't know if he's right. But looking back on it now, I was maybe one of those entitled kids that thought I was then bigger than anybody else. But, development wise, it was huge. And then the second year before I got called up, Ryan Warsawski was the coach. He's the head coach in San Jose. And just developing things that, he sees that maybe you're a little biased to. I'm sure every game you out there and you have 2 points and you're playing well. He was really good at seeing these little things that I need to work on that definitely helped grow my game as an NHLer. So looking back on it, it's like one of those things that I'll cherish forever. And it's never a bad thing, I don't think, to go to the AHL.
Yeah, well, you don't know what you don't know, right? From as far as like the NHLers that have never played there, right? They don't know what that's like to play, whatever 3 and 4.5 nights, and the
Sunday in Bridgeport,
the eating on the bus, and all the stuff that happens down there. So, it definitely, I think it grounds the guys that are there. And I'm sure that you're, when you're sitting there on the plane and you got your choice of the shrimp caviar or whatever the heck you guys are getting, that it's like, wow, this is pretty good. Like I got this pretty good. And I think that puts us in a better spot to play too, when we can stay more grounded with that piece. But the AHL itself, right? Like it is. I mean, no one there wants to be there, really, right? Like everyone kind of wants to be somewhere else. No one signed up when they were 12 to say like, yeah, I want to play in the AHL for my entire life, right? We know how hard it is to do, and like the guys that are able to do that, like that's not a disrespectful thing to say, but I'm just saying from a mental standpoint, like if you can invest in the idea of being there, and again, almost like a Pasternak kind of lesson of like, how can I what can I take from this experience, right? How do I get better? How do I improve? That really helps with that environment, I think, because boy, expectation is everything. And if you're down there, like if Connor went down there, for instance, and thought this is the last place I ever thought I should be, and I should never be here, and why they send me down, chances are you're going to be there for a little bit longer than you want to be, right?
Yeah. No, and I think that's a big thing. And that's one of the few things that I told him. I was like, you can take it one of two ways. You either, be the guy that goes down there and sulks and thinks he's too good for everybody, and guys aren't going to like you because they're going to know your attitude and things like that, or you take it and you be a great teammate and learn as much as you can. And like you said, it's a good league. Like it's tough to play. Like those games to me, guys, there's two kind of spectrums: guys that are trying to make it and guys that are trying to, stay playing professional hockey. And it makes it that much harder to, produce and perform, especially with the schedule and how grueling travel is. So, yeah, it's just one of those things that, it's a developmental league now, but I think there's a lot that you can learn, in the AHL, and definitely shaped you as an NHLer for sure.
Love it. Yeah. Especially with the mindset that you do want to learn, right? Like if you keep emphasizing that, you have to be open to it. And yeah, hopefully that means less time there. This break in the action is brought to you by Elite Prospects. Elite Prospects is the gateway to hockey, online since 1999. EliteProspects.com is the #1 statistical hockey resource, serving over 1 million unique visitors weekly. It offers the most informative hockey player database on the web and has the most reliable transaction tracker available. And for youth hockey players, EP is your very own online showcase to highlight your achievements and help secure future playing opportunities. Coaches, scouts, and schools at every level of the game consider Elite Prospects their one-stop shop to discover future stars. Elite Prospects is also powering the UMH 68 All-Star Awards. They will receive an Elite Prospects hat as a part of the prize package, which includes many other things. But super happy to have Elite Prospects on board with the UMH 68 Invitational as well. They do not partner with just any tournament. They are partnering with the UMH 68 Invitational because they are very happy with the players that are coming and also with what the program offers when it comes to the workshops, the development, the overall holistic look at the player and the athlete, and giving them the best opportunity they can be to make their goals and dreams come true. So anyone that goes to the UMH 68, in their profile, not only will they have a verified profile courtesy of Elite Prospects, they will also receive a huge discount off a verified profile. All of their stats from the UMH 68 tournament will be tracked in their profile forever, for years to come. All of the stats from all events are tracked on Elite Prospects. If you are winning an All-Star Award, lucky enough to win an All-Star Award, that will be also listed in your profile section of the awards component. So really cool for the athletes, not only to be recognized through Elite Prospects, but to have some of their accomplishments be recognized for all time there as well. One of the benefits of coming to the UMH 68 Invitational, and for us to partner with somebody like Elite Prospects. So awesome. Really enjoy having Elite Prospects on board. We value that connection. I know the players and families value that connection too, and definitely love everything Elite Prospects has to offer online. I know I use it all the time to check out players and what they've done and where they have been. So thank you, Elite Prospects. Now let's get you back to the conversation with Morgan Geekie. I never asked this question, but you were talking about curves, and so I'm going to ask it because I do geek out on sticks a little bit myself. What flex do you use, and what is your pattern? Do you have your own, or is there a number that you use that you can get by on the store shelf?
So I use it's actually the Adam Oates curve. So it's like the P92, I think it is, or the Sakic. It was a Sakic when I grew up. I don't know what the number is now.
Yeah.
Just like the generic one that you buy on the shelves, but the Oates one's a little flatter on the heel. It's just so you can use your backhand a little bit more. I found that I got it from him. I use a skills coach that kind of implies the same sort of skill-ish things that you see a lot of guys use, and it just, that curve kind of allows you to do a little bit of everything. I screw around with curves all the time, and I'm not afraid to change the length of my stick or whatever. I'm pretty standard, like 85 flex or 87, whatever Bauer is. But I've tried I got a sample of like the Kucherov curve I used a few times last year, which is a little different, and it's only like 77 flex. We're pretty spoiled. We get to kind of pick and choose whatever we want, and they'll send us whatever. But I'm using that Twitch stick. Okay. It's brand new. I got a sample sent to me last year in the summer, and that's my favorite stick I've probably ever used. I was always a CCM guy, and just switched a couple years ago, I think, and switched to this Bauer one. So it's good. I mean, I like it. It's tough to switch now, or it's tough to switch now, but it's good. And then I agree. It's one of those things that, like, you always geek out on what everyone else is using. I think there's no more of, like, I used to use like the stall. They called it stall. It was like the shovel kind of, like, it was like more of a wedge. I use that one. That one's kind of obsolete now. There's a couple guys that use it. My dad still likes it.
I always found that, like, once the technology sort of started to develop with the flex aspect and where it flexes, that I personally liked like a lower flex for, like, let's say a wrister, like a catch and release wrister. But I didn't like it for my one timer. Like, I felt like it was too much of a banana, and like, being a shooter, which I was, it was hard for me to like find that happy medium. Like, did you find that with yourself, or even like what does what does Pasta use for a flex?
I think it's 77.
So he does use
77, and it's a P28 curve. So it's like the thinner blade. The toe is like really
yeah.
heavy, like it's a really big toe. I don't know what like I said, I don't know what the store names are now. I knew what
Yeah.
they were when I was a
No,
kid,
it's a
but
28 and 92. They're still using those ones. Yeah.
yeah. So he uses that one. And those are pretty generic. Like I bet that's like 85% of the league. And then some guys have like little kinks in them. Like I mean, you see like O'Reilly's blade's a little crazy, like with the little thing on the end. But like some guys will add upshoot, make the blade a little thicker. I've tried making my blade stiffer for that, like same reason as you, where I like the lower flare. 85 flex was good, but it's like whenever I hit a one timer, I felt like my blade would give out, or like after a face off or something like that. We're also spoiled that we can use this new stick, pretty much every game. So it's like you get it fresh out of the box. But yeah, it's a lot more standard than you think, especially now. I feel like when I grew up, it was like you see the guys in junior, like with the big blades and like all these fancy things that you never knew existed. You get to the NHL and guys are pretty set in their ways, and it's pretty A or B, I would say.
Right. So you can, if you wanted to, let's say you're a Bauer guy, could you send them something and they would make your own? Like, can you get your own pattern if you wanted to?
Yeah, I had one. I actually had one in CCM. It was my first. It was like the COVID year in Carolina. I like lowered the lie, changed the curve, and like thickened it out a little bit, made it a little bit taller, and they make it. I don't think they like when you do it a lot because I think it's kind of expensive for them.
Right.
So it's like if they have it already built, and they have so many curves built, like lots of times when you ask to make a curve, they'll be like, "Oh, we have one very similar. It's just easiest to use that."
Yeah.
But they would definitely like. I've been with Bauer long enough, and I'm established, I think, enough now where I could kind of be like, "Can I do this, this, and this?" And they'd be really good about it. So yeah, it's super cool to be able to just kind of pick and choose and have your name on it, and it's cool.
Yeah.
It's
It is
it's
fun.
something like you said. It's like you don't think about those things, but like when you're a kid and you had your name on your stick, or like I used to put like the black tape on the name bar to cover it up, and then put my name on it or the number. So it's like you look back on it, it's like it's really cool to see where you started from.
Well, the thing that I feel so bad for you guys about now is like that was like my get out of jail, get out of slump piece, was like having the wooden blade that I could shave or like give some more uptick to or whatever I wanted to do. Like I was in that stick room all the time, like tweaking, and you can't do nothing to these things now, can you? Like I don't think you can, right? Like you have
No,
what you
I
have.
mean, there's a couple. I mean, I remember Bergeron, they have a couple of his sticks still sticking around, and he would like heat up the blade and like wedge it under the door like he used to and like bend it a little bit. And you could
Yeah.
see like it's fiberglass, so like there's a crack in it and whatever. But I mean, whatever works. Obviously, it worked pretty good for him. But yeah, I mean, I'm more of a if I'm struggling, I'll switch up the knob a little bit, or I'll switch up the tape. Like for a while, I was going white tape, black tape a lot of the time, and it's kind of like one of those things where you just need a new look and then go back to something that you're
Yeah.
comfortable with, and it's not necessarily as permanent as a blade change, but
Right.
it does the job for me at least.
Yeah. So we're in the off season here now, and one of the questions that I get all the time is how much do you need to be on the ice or should you be on the ice? I think it's obviously, I would assume it's different. You at 26 and with who I'm generally speaking with, which is, teenage junior type players. But how do you handle your off season now? Like is time off the ice something that you think is important? Is that something you think you can't afford not to do, or how do you approach it now?
I've kind of done both, to be honest, since I turned pro. I tried the not skate till June 15th or July 31st. I've never really gone longer than that just because that's kind of, it's my job now. So I figured, the more time, the better. And then last year, actually, I was skating like 2, 3 weeks after the season. So that was pretty quick. And then I think I'm going to start skating. I'll start skating next week. And so that'll be almost a month, which will be like a little longer for me.
Yeah.
But I think now, with like skill work and stuff, like I don't think you have to be on the ice a ton. Or sorry, you can be on the ice as much as you want. It's like the intensity more. And like I think you see a lot of things now, like especially kids growing up, like they only play hockey now. And like I played all kinds of sports. So like I never really like my miles didn't add up very quickly when it came to hockey as a kid. So it's like now it's my job. I was like, I gotta find ways, especially now with how good the league gets. You're just trying to find ways to like get better. And at least for me, I feel like if I'm not skating, I'm losing out on that stuff. Even if I'm getting stronger or things like that, I'm kind of at the age where I have my baseline and I'm trying to get back to where it is and just
Mm.
keep it as much as I can. But yeah, I'm on probably like 2, 3 times a week starting next week, and then probably 2, 3 times a week till like August or so, and then probably 3, 4, and then before camp, you go down a week or two early with the guys and do some captain skates. So you're skating like 4 or 5 times a week, and it's kind of just like you switch the intensity. You go from like off season training, off ice, and it kind of just switches, and you maybe do that only 2, 3 times a week, or at least the intensity is not as high
Right.
for majority of the week.
Well, good for you. So you mean you're taking 4 weeks off, and that was strategic and planned, and whether you worked out or not. I mean, I won't ask, but I do think that recovery is important. For some,
Mhm.
just even from a healing standpoint and a rest standpoint is probably nice. And then ramp up the intensity and the ice sessions as you get closer. Has anything changed for you, like in the brief window? I shouldn't say that brief, but I mean 20 to 26. Since you become a pro, like has the training aspect of you getting better and looking after yourself, has there been any changes to that?
I think last couple of years I started to take a little bit more care of myself off the ice. When I moved to Calgary, I had a little bit more access to that kind of stuff. It felt like, and though I think the one thing for me was my wife actually mentioned it to me before we moved to Calgary was like I think every year. My last year junior to like 2 years ago, I had switched my training regime and trainer every single year. And I didn't really think about it like that. Like I tried the same trainer that I always had growing up. And then I trained in Winnipeg, and then I trained in Seattle. And then I did like a more of like a body weight mobility program for a year. And then I finally, I've been in Calgary for 3 years now. And I think for me, it's just like the stability of knowing what I'm going to do is huge. And like I'm comfortable in the gym, and my trainer's really awesome about days off and like if I'm feeling good and substituting exercises, and I'm getting treatment 2, 3 times a week, just staying on top of things like that, because it's a long year, and especially when you start to play more throughout the year, like games add up. And it's someone had mentioned like morning skates add up to like 10 extra games or something. So it's like you put on a lot of miles as a pro, and just trying to get back to square one and restart. And it's good.
Do you use field work at all in your training? Are you on the track at all?
Yeah, we're on the track twice a week normally. Twice a
Okay.
week for like till August probably, and then it's like 2.5, I would say. Just like a little bit. You take a little bit off like the weights and stuff. You do a little more sprints and stuff. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah, a little bit.
So that sprint training, I see a little bit more of that showing up, and I'm seeing a little bit less bike. Like, is a bike part of your training existence? You guys on that doing sprints there or any type of cardio work?
I love the bike. I think it's depends who you ask. But I was always taught growing up that was like, oh, your hip flexors they get too tight, so like that was you don't want to bike because you're always in like the hunched position, and
Yeah.
I was like growing up, I was like, I don't know, I like biking and it seems to help me.
Yeah.
So I got a 10 or 20 kilometer bike tomorrow that I'm supposed to do, and I enjoy it. I bought a road bike, last year, a couple years ago, and it's an easy way to train, and it's like one of those more slow methods, I would say now. But we do a lot of like the air bike too. I guess that's the sprint aspect of the bike, but it's good. We use it for
Okay.
sure.
Cool. Well, I want to wish you luck. Maybe I'd be doing this podcast disservice. I didn't talk about what the next steps are and even where your mindset is. You're, I believe, an unrestricted free agent, right? Correct? Yeah.
Restricted.
Oh, you're an
So,
RFA.
yeah, I missed it
Well,
by 19 days. Yeah,
really?
I'm July 20th. Yeah. So
Holy smokes. So as an RFA, that means I'm not familiar with the collective bargaining agreement that much right now. Does that mean that like, for you to be qualified, they have to give you that 10% raise and that's it? Or how does the negotiation aspect work in your deal right now?
yeah, so it's qualifying offer. They'll offer a qualifying offer, I think, on the 29th of June, if possible, or if they want to.
Yeah.
When I was in Seattle, that's how I came to Boston. Was I wasn't offered a qualifying offer, so then you become an unrestricted free agent.
Yeah.
This situation, same situation. It's like if they want to offer me a qualifying offer, they'll do so on that day. it's a 10% raise on whatever you earn now. And then that's not to say you can stop negotiating a deal by any means, but it's just like they have to give you that because you're entitled to that, and if they want you to be their property. And then if nothing is figured out by that point, you kind of go to arbitration, which is like the court date where you go in Toronto and all the big wigs yell at you and tell you how bad of a hockey player you are, and you tell them how good you are. So hopefully it doesn't get to that point, but you can negotiate up until then. It's kind of just more of a formality.
Gotcha. So I mean, if they were to hard line something, it hasn't necessarily changed from even when I was there. Because if they give you that offer and you say, like, let's say they don't give you anything over that, just for theoretical, right? Hypothetical, I should say, reasons. They maintain your rights, and then you also don't play, right? Like that's where that is at, correct? Like they maintain your access to you, and that's kind of the end of it, right? That was the way it was when I was in LA. I remember it was like I didn't want to sign what they gave me, but I really didn't have any other power other than them qualifying me.
Yeah. So now with that situation, you get arbitration rights. So it's basically, I think it's July 21st or late July. You file for arbitration, which basically you take them to court over like you think you're worth more than what your qualifying offer is. And so you can file for arbitration, which basically you both go to the court, plead your case. Normally the player comes in a lot higher than what he's worth, and the team comes in a lot lower, and you meet somewhere in the middle for 1 year. And it's kind of like just a good like bridge deal to figure something out for a year, and you can kind of reconvene at Christmas.
So if you sign a 1-year deal, then you would be an unrestricted free agent at the end of that year.
Yeah,
that's good for the players. So then you do have so there is a value there. Boston recognizes they have to give you a value over the 10% because you've obviously would have had a season that allows you to get paid more than the 10%. So you're protected by arbitration to get something reasonable, right?
Yeah, it's good. It's huge. Yeah, and you don't have that your first couple of years in the league. I think you have to it's either games played or service time in the league or sorry, the association or whatever. So it's good. It's definitely important and really, really good. We got that for sure.
Awesome. Well, good luck with that. I mean, so it sounds like it's Boston then essentially or not, I guess, right? Like with how that works.
They get their first dibs, but we'll see. It's a long summer. So it's like I said, I'm not too worried about it, and things will sort out the way they do. I think I'm pretty lucky to play in the NHL and have the year I did. So it's just one of those things where the crumbs will follow. They will, and
great timing. Couldn't have happened at a better time to have a great year, and hopefully it's the start of many more. So really appreciate, Morgan, you being so candid and giving so much up of your day, your time there. I thank you. My fans thank you, and my fans. I shouldn't say that. I don't have any fans. The podcast has.
Sure, you do. You got listeners. Listeners are fans.
My podcast has some listeners. So they will definitely appreciate your time and your insights. So thanks for being here.
Yes, of course. No, it's good, and I'm excited to be at the Up My Hockey Manitoba this weekend.
Yeah, that's right. We're gonna get a chance to actually shake hands. So for those we had Morgan's dad on, Craig, who's my provincial director there for my UMH 68. So we're bringing the first time event out there to Brandon, and we're going to have some of the best U15s in Manitoba being there. And I think you're going to be an ambassador, so I hear, for a couple days there, right?
I'll be there. I'll do whatever's needed. I'm a utility man tomorrow or this weekend. Sorry.
That's awesome. Yeah. So really looking forward to it. So if you're in the area there, anyone, Brandon, Manitoba, or on the outskirts, come watch some great hockey. Morgan will be there. I think Connor's coming in for a day and or two, and we'll watch some good hockey, and hopefully there's some good lessons that are happening there. So thanks for doing that.
Yes, of course.
All right, man. Well, until then, we'll part ways, and we'll see you soon.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much for listening to episode 159 with Morgan Geekie. Morgan, I'm sure you're not listening. If you are, you're a rock star. Super amazing that you were able to donate that much of your time and that much of your insight about being a hockey player and what it takes to become a hockey player at the highest level. As discussed in the introduction, I think that there's so many awesome lessons for players out there with their own development timeline. when they're considering where they're at in space, where they might be playing, who they might be playing with, how they think that looks in the big picture as far as what their dreams are and what their goals are. Morgan more than once had an opportunity to say, this might not be working out the way I want it to. When he didn't get to play in the WHL as a 16-year-old, when he did play as a 17-year-old and didn't get drafted, when he got taken in the expansion draft and then didn't get his contract renewed, when he was with Boston this season as a fourth or fifth year NHL guy and was getting healthy scratched at the beginning of the season. There's lots of opportunities for Morgan to look at things and be like, geez, why me? This isn't working out great. This isn't what I had planned. This wasn't on my schedule. But time and time again, he was able to push through these types of adversity, was able to come out stronger on the other side. And currently, Morgan is sitting as a 33 goal scorer in the NHL and is going to be signing a new ticket. So I love that. Everyone's development path is different. Everyone's journey is different. You need to embrace where you are, put the blinders on, and do the best you can to control the things that you can control and get yourself in the best position possible to be the best player that you can be. And Morgan is well on his way to finding where his potential is at. And that's the fun thing about potential. And that's whether I work with a 12-year-old or a 22-year-old. It's like, what is the ceiling? Where is the ceiling? And when we get creative about what that ceiling is and we start believing that, hey, maybe there is more out there, there's more in me than what I have previously seen or what I have previously shown, then some amazing stuff happens. We talked about a little bit in the episode, but like, did Morgan ever think in an NHL season that he would score more goals than Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, and Jack Eichel all combined in the same year? I mean, I don't know if he would have ever raised his hand and said, yeah, I expect that to happen. But here he is now in a situation where that did happen. That is the reality of his situation. His potential has been elevated. The ceiling for him has now changed. What an exciting spot to be in. And why doesn't that apply to someone like you? Well, guess what? It does apply to someone like you. It just matters how you are looking at your career, how you're looking at your own development, the things that you're doing about it, and what your belief system is about it. So really, really fun. I love stories like this. I wish nothing but the best for Morgan. I'm sure you could tell from the interview how humble and grounded he is about where he's at. And that is definitely another component of mindset that is a good one, right? Gratitude, grounding, being humble, giving back to the game, which he's doing with the UMH 68 Invitational, coming to supply some value to these kids who want to be in his skates someday. That's a good person right there. And good people usually create good hockey players, and Morgan is a definite example of that. So thank you for your time, Morgan. Thank you for those listening. And until next time, this is Jason Podolin. Without my hockey, play hard and keep your head up.